Hello, friends. What happens when a man decides he isn't just emperor, but a living god? In Rome, that man was Domitian, and let's just say it didn't end with hymns and hallelujahs. Domitian ruled from 81 to 96 CE, and from the start, he had a flair for drama. While previous emperors flirted with divinity after death, temples built, cults formed, worship encouraged, Domitian skipped the waiting list. He demanded to be addressed as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God. Imagine walking into work tomorrow and your boss says, "From now on, call me Lord and God." You'd either laugh or quit. In Rome, you didn't get to do either. At first, Domitian wasn't all bad. He fixed finances, strengthened the army, and rebuilt parts of Rome. He even cracked down on corruption in the courts. But all of this was wrapped in his suffocating need for control, and of course, worship. Senators had to flatter him constantly. Anyone who resisted risked exile, confiscation of property, or worse. Statues of Domitian multiplied across Rome, not just as emperor, but as a divine figure with rays like the sun. And the fun twist? People absolutely hated it. Romans had always been okay with emperors becoming gods after death. Augustus, for example, was worshipped posthumously. But living divinity? That felt arrogant, almost comical. Domitian thought he was elevating himself above mere mortals. In reality, he was making himself the butt of whispered jokes. One writer quipped that while he wanted to be Jupiter on Earth, he ended up more like a thundercloud, loud, gloomy, and constantly threatening rain. But the emperor's paranoia only grew. He ruled with a mix of theater and terror. Informants flourished, trials multiplied, and executions became common. He even had the walls of his palace lined with mirrors so he could spot anyone sneaking up behind him. Ironically, that didn't work out for him in the end. Yet, despite his tyranny, Domitian had a softer side, or at least an eccentric one. He loved arts and games, staged elaborate spectacles, and had a passion for tinkering with rules. He once banned certain grapes because he didn't like the wine they produced. He also took pride in catching flies and stabbing them with a stylus, which led one critic to mock him as a bald Nero with flies. Not quite the godly image he was going for. By the mid-90s CE, the Senate was seething. The elites were terrified, and even his closest allies were plotting. Finally, in 96 CE, his paranoia came true. He was assassinated in his own palace by members of his court. And here's the kicker. The Senate's reaction wasn't mourning, but celebration. They immediately declared damnatio memoriae, erasing Domitian's name and image wherever they could. Statues smashed, inscriptions chiseled, his memory condemned. For a man who wanted to be remembered as a living god, being deliberately forgotten was the ultimate insult. And yet, here we are, 2,000 years later, still talking about him. Domitian may not have succeeded in becoming a god, but he did achieve a kind of immortality, the strange kind reserved for the infamous. So what's the lesson in Domitian's divine experiment? Maybe this: power can make you mighty, but humility makes you memorable in the right way. The Romans laughed at Domitian's god complex, but they honored emperors who earned respect through wisdom, generosity, or vision. In the end, Domitian tried to rise higher than any mortal, only to prove that even emperors who claim to be gods are still very human. And maybe that's the quiet lesson of history. True greatness isn't declared, it's remembered.